I became mostly a vegetarian. I mean, I'm not, I eat fish every once in a while, but, and I became it mostly because I was teaching courses on animal ethics and learning more about the way we treat animals. I was thinking about the climate crisis, and I was thinking, we do bring a lot of harm. And in 2018, I believe, I just put the thought out there. It was in the New York Times. I was, a writer for the Floshy blog, The Stone, right? And I wrote a column, Would Human Extinction Be a Tragedy? And I argued that it's possible that it might be a tragedy and yet might be a good thing at the same time. And it must have been the day it appeared, a very slow news day on the far right, because what happened was about an hour after it appeared, I started to get hate mail. And it was all of the order of, well, why don't you go extinct? Right. And I didn't know where this was coming from. And then I found out that I got invited to the Laura Ingraham show. I got invited onto InfoWars. Ben Shapiro wrote a column saying Todd May says we should all kill ourselves, which was not what I said. Um, but then it just kept going for a few days, right? And I was lucky; it died out 3 or 4 days later. But it was a disturbing thought, and I just sort of put it out there. And over the years since 2018, just it kept circling back, circling back, circling back, right? And I just had, as I described to you, I just one day I saw a book, right? And the book was not a strict yes, we should go extinct, no, we shouldn't. But here are things that we bring to the world that no other animal can bring. And it would be a real loss if these things weren't in the world. But yet and still, on the other hand, there are these we create horrors that other animals are not capable of. And if we weren't here, these horrors would not be getting created. But I didn't want to end there, right? Then the last place I went was, well, what are the kinds of things we could do to justify or more nearly justify our continued existence here, right? What are things that would allow us to tilt toward the positive side and mitigate the negative side so that our being here would be more justifiable. And that that was the last chapter to talk about that.
What were some of those conclusions you reached?
They're, they're not they're not mystical, right? So, for instance, moving away from factory farming, right? That the factory farming causes just enormous suffering, right? Uh, Moving away from deforestation, which means, right, limiting population growth, which means, right, ensuring equal access to women for education, because that's the thing that limits population growth more than anything, right? Taking a more critical view of scientific testing, right? Maybe there's some justifications for some scientific testing, but not for a lot of it. Those kinds of things. Now, people have asked me as I've talked about this, is, well, those things are good to do regardless of the question of human extinction. And I say, yeah, but here's the thing. If you say, if we don't do these things, maybe morally the world would be better off without us. I said, that adds a real edge to this, right? It goes back to the Samuel Johnson quote, right? That nothing concentrates. That what do you say? If a man knows that he's to be subject to a hanging in 2 weeks, that concentrates the mind admirably. And I said, so if you think of this book as the prospect of a moral hanging, right? That we might not deserve to carry on our genes. That's going to give an urgency to thinking about these issues. That just saying it would be better if we did it would not. I think are two groups of people here, right? one, a group of people who aren't thinking about extinction, but who are going to be intrigued at the title and then pick it up, and they're going to think, yeah, I morally, I really should be doing more than I'm doing. Right? That would be one group of people. So in that sense, the book is an extension of the Decent Life book. Right? This just saying we can do a little bit more. Right? The other group, and this is a group I wouldn't have known was there until I wrote the article in 2018. There are people who think about this issue. There are people who think about, do we deserve to be here? I got emails from folks saying, I thought I was the only one who wondered about this stuff. And this gives a way to frame it, to think about it, right, in a rigorous way, but also to look for a path forward, not just to sit there and think maybe we should go extinct, but to say, actually, that's a live question, and there are things that we can do about this. Now, a number of these things don't involve individual action. I mean, some of them do, right? They involve collective action, policies changes. But people can, they can militate for policy changes as well, right? And another aspect of it, and I get this from my students, Jay, particularly on the climate crisis. Students say to me, there's nothing I can do that will make a difference. And I say, okay, look, I don't agree with that, but let's assume that that's true. Let's assume this. Let's assume that you will not make a difference in the climate crisis. That still leaves over the question of, yeah, but how do you want to live? Right? What do you want the shape of your life to be? Do you want the shape of your life to be one that contributes to the climate crisis, that contributes to cruelty toward animals, right? Even if you're becoming, say, you're not eating factory farm meat, it's going to make no difference in the number of animals that are cruelly slaughtered. Nevertheless, how do you want to live? And for my students, that hits them, right? Because now they don't feel it's just hopeless for them. They feel like they have control over the shape of their own lives, even if that doesn't make a big difference outside with outside effects.